Good morning. Good morning. Father's Day is all about the tie. The tie that I wear today is my patriarchal tie from the Sistine Chapel, with God the Father touching the fingertip of Adam. This patriarchal view of God has fallen out of fashion, and I understand why that is so. Once the unquestioned king of all, God has suffered a world of rebellious children. It's been critiqued by feminist theologians as too authoritarian, ordering us with commandments, too violent, smiting and punishing sinners, too distant, working out his eternal plan, too silent, not speaking like did to the prophets of old, too different of a symbol to be loved and revered. And likewise, real fathers have been marginalized. Authority has disappeared. No modern woman wants to be controlled by a man. And I imagine women in the past didn't enjoy it much either. Violence, thankfully, has been rejected, as we realize it's wrong to beat our children. It doesn't teach them right from wrong, it only teaches them to avoid punishment. Fathers have been distanced by our industrial age, sent away from the home to work, believing that their job is more important and perhaps their only role in fatherhood. Returning home, the father is a stranger, too different to be loved and revered. Traditional fatherhood gained a lot of power from theology. Taught that God is a father, fathers began to presume that they were gods. King of the castle, ruler of the roost. Father knows best. Fathers were expected to be the representative of the tyrant God, ruling in power, disciplining with vengeance, providing material things, lording over the family from on high. I believe that this is a perversion of what Jesus meant when he called God Father. In the Old Testament, God isn't referred to as Father. By speaking of the fatherhood of God, Jesus was offering a new symbol for God to replace the king, the vengeful, jealous Lord of the Old Testament. Sadly, for many, the opposite occurred. Instead of fatherhood transforming the ideas of God, the ideas of God, of a tyrant God, transformed fatherhood. But fatherhood, as Jesus used it, is used to apply new truths to God. It is associated with forgiveness. In the prayer that begins, Our Father, it is said, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. The story of the prodigal son is a story of forgiveness. And the forgiveness of the Father is universal. As Jesus says, so it is not the will of my Father in heaven that one of these little ones will perish. The Father is giving. Jesus said, "What man of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone?" God is not a distant God, a Lord in heaven. God is as close as one's father. The Gospel of Mark records Jesus saying the Aramaic word Abba, which is best translated as Dada or Papa. It's not a formal title like Father. It's more intimate. It implies a relationship built on love rather than by rank. Paul remembers this word from Jesus in his letter to the Romans. When we cry, "Abba, Father," it is the Spirit himself bearing witness to our spirit that we are children of God. The word Abba is used, as Paul explains in Galatians 4:6, that Christians are no longer slaves to God, but children and heirs. And because this word Abba is a small fragment of the teachings of Jesus in the language that he spoke. Most of the Gospels were written 50 years after Jesus spoke, and they were written in Greek. But they held on to this little word, Abba. And because they held on to this fragment, to me that's evidence that it was central to the teachings of Jesus. In his life, Jesus called on the Father for mercy and forgiveness. But at the time of death, he goes, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which is the only other Aramaic words, my God, why have you forsaken me?" During this time of pain, punishment, and sacrifice, God is not referred to as Father. The Christian church, living in the resurrection, reclaims the fatherhood of God. The fatherhood of God was a new understanding intended to make God less authoritarian, known for mercy rather than enforcement of the law. The church did not wish to abandon its roots in Judaism, decided to live in contrast with the Old Testament God as King and Jesus and Paul's understanding of God as Father. And the Father-King merged into one. Originally they were separate, with Jesus arguing for the Father symbol, and the Pharisees and the lawgivers arguing for God as King. The church adopted Jesus' language of Father, but kept all the forms of king and dictator. Therefore, instead of all being forgiven, as Jesus implied in his parables, the church forgave only those who bowed down to the king. That one who sits on the right hand of God, judging the quick and the dead. The father, as king of the family, has passed down through Western culture. This is patriarchy. And while attacking patriarchy, the father was wounded along with the king. Some decry the loss of the importance of fatherhood, blame it on feminism. But both the earthly and heavenly father's authority was challenged. The physical domination of earthly and heavenly fathers was rejected. But was it really fatherhood under attack? I don't think so. I think it was kings disguised as fathers that are being overthrown. The duty of king and father are opposite. we can reclaim fatherhood only by separating it from the false notions of dictatorship. A dictator father earns money and hands it out miserly so he can control his children. But a father creates a home and lives in relationship with those children. A father plants a seed. A king demands the bounty of the harvest. Fatherhood is about giving and letting children grow. A king demands his subjects to obedient and to conform. A father's power is in giving. A king's power is in taking. A father holds his children to give them security. A king holds prisoners so that he himself is secure. A father gives all he can afford and more to his children. And a king hoards his wealth, dispersing it sparingly to control subjects. A father gives children tools to build their own world. A king gives his subjects jobs to build up the kingdom. Many years ago, leaders of this country decided that a dictatorship was a lousy form of government. And many of the people in our founding were deists. And they had a different notion of God. One of the words that's often used in colonial time is providence. God is that which gives, and that has given us the tools to survive. And so it was out of this sense of shared blessings that this nation arose, imperfectly, not understanding all of the people that belonged in the family, but planting a seed that we can build on and we can demand that vision of all people living together equally is done now. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The beauty of fatherhood has been lost because it has been confused with dictatorship. When we look to leaders, do we look for them to empower us to be our best? Or do we look to them to be rescuers, to be something to worship, or something to follow like some cult? Think about any conflict that you may have had with your own father. And they probably stem from the times that your father was playing the role of dictator. Beating a child was traditionally preferred by the prefaced with the line, "This is going to hurt you, hurt me more than it will hurt you." For a dictator, that's never true. But for a father, that is true. Every wound that is inflicted on the child is the king wounding the daddy, locking him out of the role as merciful giver and making him a prison guard to his own children. Reclaiming fatherhood is not about reclaiming authority. It's not about controlling the means of capital in order to control the family. Authority of kings is money and brute force. The real power of fatherhood is in giving and sharing. If we give our children good gifts, they will produce more good gifts. If we give them fear and anger and domination, they will give those things to others. Certainly, any of us who have been a parent know that our children will disappoint us at times. Forgiveness gives them another chance to succeed. Think about the fond memories you have of a father figure. And there were times that he was giving and forgiving. This contrast between king and father comes forth in one of the most disturbing parts of the movie for me, in the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Sidney Poitier is yelling at his father because the father is scolding him for wanting to marry a white girl. And the father, a black man, proud black man who worked his way up, said, "I didn't break my back delivering mail for you to disobey me. You listen to me." And Sidney Poitier says, "I don't owe you anything. You worked hard and sacrificed for me because that's what you're supposed to do as my father. And it's what I'm supposed to do if I'm lucky to have a child." The father in this scene mistook fatherhood for dictatorship. I do wish the son would have treated him with a little more kindness. But the truth of what Sidney Poitier's character said is that we receive in order to pass on. Raising children is not about what the parents get. Though many of us have had our lives enriched by children, it's about giving to our children so that they will have strength to give to others. Tom Owen Toll, the Unitarian Universalist minister, in his book New Men, Deeper Hungers, writes, "I personally believe that we parents do not raise children at all. We relate to them. We raise flags, blinds, arms, and corn, but not other humans. We foster an environment, but children grow themselves. We are catalysts and providers, but we are not the determiners of our children's life. So I try to parent essentially from and for myself. There's a profound relationship and ongoing feedback. But I act on the basis of what feels right to me as the father in the response to 4 unrepeatable children. This means if I want to hug our sons and daughters, then I give rather than beg or barter for it. I have found the following epigram to hold true for my fathering. Give, and you shall often receive. Wait to receive, and you'll often resent." Parenting. Both mothering and fathering are about giving and forgiving. If you are a mother raising a child without a man present, do not try to become a father by assuming the role of dictator. The role of king is inappropriate for male and female parents. But all of us in all our relationships with others, with small children, and even our adult children, need to reclaim giving and forgiving as a true parenthood. Fatherhood, understood in such a way, is then an also appropriate metaphor for the holy. However we understand the holy, whether the holy is human kindness of what we give to one another, or whether it comes from someone far away or some being that's intimately within us. That which gives and forgives is divine. May we bless and be blessed.